Let's take a closer look at the science here, because this is fascinating. The younger Dryas impact hypothesis suggests that fragments of a disintegrating comet bombarded the Earth around 12,800 years ago, primarily hitting the Laurentide ice sheet that once covered much of North America. And the result, well, was instant vaporization of ice, massive floods, flash freeze in the northern hemisphere, and the extinction of over 75% of North America's megafauna, including mammoths, saber-toothed cats, and giant sloths. This coincides with a dramatic 400-foot rise in sea levels globally, with some estimates suggesting 30 feet of ocean rise may have occurred almost overnight in some areas. Geological evidence also supports this theory. A thin, dark layer known as the Younger Dryas boundary has been discovered on 3 continents. It contains nanodiamonds, melted silica spherules, iridium, and even extraterrestrial helium materials typically associated with high-temperature cosmic impacts.
On May 15th in 1989, on local Las Vegas news, a man gives an interview and claims that he worked at a secret military base near Area 51, known as S4, in southern Nevada, and it was his job specifically to reverse engineer anti-gravity propulsion systems from UFO technology.
So it was real obvious what was in the hangar. You could see about 3/4 of the edge of the craft. It was a typical flying saucer. It was, I say typical, I mean like anything you'd see in a cartoon.
According to Lazar, the United States Navy has possession of 9 alien spaceships, one of which Lazar was assigned to analyze at Area 51.
This is really major news. I mean, this blows up the conspiracy theories about Area 51. He says that we have had alien encounters, that what's being hidden there is not nuclear secrets, is not spy planes, but is, in fact, known alien technology.
There are 5 strange hovering lights. There's no land there.
(1989). Bob Lazar sits in shadow, describing a reactor he claims is powered by Element 115.
Element 115 has its own lore in UFO history. So this was said to be an element described by a gentleman named Bob Lazar, who claimed to have worked just south of Area 51 on an ET flying saucer.
He talks about seamless spheres and gravity waves. Fast forward to 2025. A sphere is reported in Colombia that allegedly matches his description down to the internal geometry. It's heavy, it's cold, and it's completely seamless. Then, just as quickly, it's confiscated. The Booga sphere X-rays are now some of the most heavily picked apart images in UFO forums and conspiracy corners of the internet.
When I first saw it, I thought that this was a US-made, very advanced next-generation fighter, and in fact that this would explain all the UFO sightings.
They force us to ask a terrifying question. What if Lazar wasn't imagining it? What if he was just early? The field of secrets. It started in the most unassuming way possible, with a shaky vertical video allegedly uploaded to a Colombian discussion forum in early March 2025. The footage, filmed at dusk, showed a metallic sphere resting in an overgrown field outside Buga, Colombia. It didn't look like much at first glance, just a silver ball, maybe 18 inches across, sitting in the dirt. But the context was all wrong. There were no tracks leading to it, no crater, and no signs of how it got there. The uploader, using a handle that would be deleted within days, claimed the object was unnaturally cold. Here's the thing about viral mysteries. They usually burn out in 24 hours. This one didn't. Within hours of the video going live, locals in Buga started talking. WhatsApp groups lit up with rumors of a caída del cielo, something fallen from the sky. But unlike a meteorite, this object was pristine. Witnesses who managed to get close before the area was cleared described the surface as having a dull metallic sheen. It wasn't chrome bright, but it had a depth to it. The craziest part? It had 0 seams, no welds, no rivets, no access panels. It was a perfect, continuous geometric form. It is rare to find anything man-made that is truly seamless. Even the most advanced iPhones have screws, ports, and seams where the glass meets the metal. This object had none of that. It was as if it had been birthed whole, a single solid drop of liquid metal that froze instantly. The locals who touched it reported a sensation that went beyond just cold. They said it felt like it was pulling the heat out of their hands, a sort of magnetic chill that lingered even after they let go. This detail is crucial because it suggests the object wasn't just inert metal, it was active. It was doing something with the thermodynamics of the air around it. Then came the Men in Black moment. According to regional radio reports and translated forum posts, a group of men arrived in an unmarked truck less than 48 hours after the discovery. There was no police tape, no official statement from the Colombian military, and definitely no press conference. They simply loaded the heavy sphere into the back and drove off. By the time mainstream reporters from Bogotá arrived, the field was empty. The original video was scrubbed from the forum, and the uploader's account vanished into the digital ether. It was a textbook cleanup operation, the kind that usually screams classified military recovery or cartel activity. But they left something behind. Before the sphere was taken, someone, likely a local medical technician or an engineer with access to portable industrial imaging, managed to scan it. We don't know who, and we don't know exactly how, but a set of high-contrast X-ray images leaked online shortly after the object's disappearance. These weren't your standard blurry UFO photos. These were complex, layered scans showing an internal architecture that made no sense for a satellite component or a piece of mining equipment. The exterior was featureless, but the inside was a clockwork of density and geometry. The silence from official channels was deafening. You would expect a statement, maybe a weather balloon excuse, or a fallen satellite debris explanation, but there was nothing. No publicly available civil defense logs have listed a recovery operation, and no university or research institution has publicly claimed it as a lost project. It was as if the object never existed. This vacuum of information did exactly what you'd expect. It fueled the fire. People started dissecting the leaked X-rays.
Is that an artificial moon?
Yes, yes, absolutely. It's Sol's our moon. Our moon's artificial, completely artificial. It was brought here from Ursa Minor, apparently between 11 and 12,000 years ago.
For the purpose of
being a satellite in a base, which they evacuated some time ago, but it's now being operational again. And I covered this in the series of 8. It came from a star system called Chata. That's for a word. That's the word they used, Chata, and it was the 17th planet out of a solar system that had 21 planets, and it was one of 4 moons, and it was brought here. It is older than the Earth. There are ruins all over it. There are bases underneath it. It's everything that we're told it isn't. So that's a whole unique story unto itself.
It's not lightning. It's moving again. Right across. Look at the trees. Shadows are back. Aye, I see it. You hear that? It's getting lower.
What is it though?
I don't know.
In Merv, Turkmenistan, we just saw this logo in the center right here. And now we're also seeing it over here. This site gives us another narrative where it says, then they set fire to the city and burned the tomb. We all know, if you've done this research for a while, that Turkmenistan is a very odd place. There's so many old world structures here. But with this one, we can clearly see melting yet again. An event took place that completely wiped out this previous civilization. This event melted its structures. The stone looks like it's dripping. It is so weird. And then take a look at this angle. Imagine what this place looked like before being melted like this. These are all the stone and granite structures that are still here today. Do you think that they possibly constructed palaces using other materials that aren't as tough as stone and granite? I'm just going to guess and say yes. I believe that these stone palaces were constructed to show the next civilization what the previous civilization was capable of. The structures that used the other materials are obviously gone now. Exactly how our box-style buildings would be gone in the wind. This is such a weird sight. You can see the melting so clearly. And check this one out. Look at the bricks at the bottom and how it once looked. And then look at the rest of it. Could you even imagine what is underneath all this dirt right here? I would bet that this mud-flooded layer of dirt is covering up so much more. Finding mosques in the late 1800s. Our timeline again. We must have just been riding around on those donkeys' backs saying, what the did we miss? Why are there stone and granite palaces all over the place? And then I go to my little classroom that's built with wood, and then my teacher telling me and my friends that we are living in the most advanced time ever. The most technology, writing with their local duck's feather, walking down their dirt road with potholes everywhere. They were having no fun, and the most fun they'd have is to go outside and make a candle, looking across the dirt road at an old world palace. But teacher, what about all the palaces in my little town? Wait, what did you just say? The palaces in my... You better get your butt over to the asylum. This is what you call being a finder, or a founder, 100%. This is what happened in every continent in the 1800s. And then they gave us these fabricated narratives, telling all of us all about the pottery that they found. The pottery is an incredible tactic to distract us from the truth, saying it was yellow and green pottery, with turquoise and black pottery bowls in the other palace, with Mongol-style pottery as well. The pottery is a distraction, 100%. It gives all of us the satisfaction that they found something at the site. And once we see that they found something, we stop digging.
The ring being in effect a one-turn shorted secondary. A smaller ring will react even more violently. Here is another ring. This one made of a material we say is non-conducting. and it is completely unaffected. Here is another example. Several thousand watts of power were involved in that spark. If we replace the spark gap with a copper coil, the same power now flows through the coil. It's invisible, has no effect on many substances, but it can generate a lot of heat. Wood, paper, things that we think of as being quite inflammable, are not affected at all. However, a piece of steel wool bursts into flame instantly. Did you ever fry an egg on a coal stove? It's no trick at all, if you have the right equipment. This is a cold hot plate, and because it's cold, you can make it out of wood, if you like. Just be sure that there's a coil of wire inside and that you connect that coil to a high-voltage alternating current source. The rest is easy. As long as we're being different, we'll use motor oil instead of Crisco. The egg fries very quickly, but the stove remains perfectly cold. In fact, if you wish to keep it handy, you can fry your egg on the morning newspaper. With a gadget like this, you can get up in the morning, sit on the stove, read the morning newspaper, and fry the eggs in your lap. Another example of the fact that physical forces can be quite selective in their effect.
They've been hiding this from you. The Sphinx wasn't just a guardian of the pyramids. It's the key to a hidden underground city. But that's not even the craziest thing that was recently discovered. In ancient Egyptian texts, there are references to hidden chambers, saying, "Beneath the lion lies the heart of our knowledge." The Sphinx was carved over 4,000 years ago, so what secrets lie beneath it? This is where things get scary. In recently discovered papyrus scrolls, it's said that the Sphinx wasn't merely a statue, but an entrance to an advanced ancient civilization known as the Osirians. The scrolls specifically mention that the Osirians, who possessed advanced engineering and knowledge, built a vast underground city beneath the Sphinx to protect their wisdom and technology from invaders. However, once the Osirians vanished, their city was sealed, and the true purpose of the Sphinx was hidden to keep their advanced knowledge out of the wrong hands. This explains why ground-penetrating radar has detected anomalies beneath the Sphinx, and why access to these areas remains restricted.
I went with this one guy, and he looked like a lizard. Like, I was so scared. Like, he was sitting beside me, I was like, oh my God. I was like, holy shit, he looks just like a lizard, and I had to go. It was really bad.
So you just left? Wow.
So the Titanic had bankers on there that opposed the Federal Reserve.
Right.
This is documented. And
Okay.
they didn't like the Federal Reserve. They were like, I can't get down with this. This makes no sense. And then, have you ever read The Creature from Jekyll Island?
No.
It explains everything in detail, what happened. So, you have these bankers that are on the ship. What bankers weren't on the ship? Oh, JP Morgan and his wife leave the night before, all his luggage. Say, I'm out. Coincidence? And then he's one of the bankers that run the financial system now, to this day. Because the Federal Reserve is a bank owned by other banks. And this is why we have, the 12.
The Federal Reserve is a bank owned by other banks. And what are those banks? Because that was deep.
Yeah, so you have JP Morgan, you have, Wells Fargo, all these major banks. That's who runs the whole game right now. For sure. So, oh yeah, I forgot. Yeah, JP Morgan was involved with Epstein too. Because remember that whole lawsuit that they had against JP Morgan? And they knew what was going on with Epstein because they ran all his banks and whatnot. JP Morgan paid out the victims millions of dollars. 75 million, 200 million, like. So these are the banks that we're talking about. So again, the Federal Reserve is a private entity doing business with United States Inc. Because the United States of America is different from United States Inc.
Do know that.
Okay.
Understand sovereignty.
Of course. Why do you think that every state has a different set of laws? We have a common law, right? Federal and all that. But then we have state laws. That's where they got us.
The quarry, you have these scoop marks. It's like they've scooped away at the granite with an ice cream scoop. They'll tell you that it's this pounding stone of dolerite about that big, and they reckon they were doing this with it.
Anyone that simply picks up one of these dolerite hammers and bangs away on a piece of granite will see that it's nonsense. And not only that, those scoop marks, they're symmetrical. It doesn't make sense that would be done by hand.
There's something else at work here. There's some other technology that's been used to remove this granite at a rapid rate.
Do you guys remember that story of the Titan sub that went down to the Titanic and exploded?
Yeah. Saw the video of the wife listening to the sound. That's
crazy, though. This guy, Stockholm Rush, they did one dive down to the Titanic, and on their way up, there was just loud boom, and like everyone's like, "Whoa, that!" And this happened before when they tested their previous submarine in the Bahamas, and that big loud pop was the carbon fiber hull starting to snap. And so he's like, "Don't worry about it." And so they got up, they were fine. Everyone's like, "Cool," and it's like, "Okay, we'll come back after winter to do more explorations or whatever."
Sure.
And so they brought it back to Canada, no modifications. Didn't look to see if there was a crack. They left it in a parking lot in Canada over winter.
The same vessel?
The same vessel.
Wow.
And then here comes spring. It's like, okay, now we got these billionaires that want to go on. So they going down, boom, gonzo. The craziest part I got from this documentary, Stockholm Rush, his father was the president of Bohemian Grove.
Ooh, that's cool.
So Bohemian Grove is a club located north of San Francisco in the woods, and that's where like all the elites go like once a year. They have that giant Moloch god that they all do this like
stuff that they do there. That's what we don't know, but it's 100% confirmed that it's a real place. All these leaders meet there. Who knows what they're doing?
Yeah.
You know that joke in the Appalachian Mountains, if you hear your name? No, you didn't. I have a theory. The Appalachian Mountains are known to be exceptionally creepy. So there's this interactive map on dinosaurpictures.org where you can enter your address and a time period to see what your area looked like during different stages of tectonic movement. Here's where I grew up, northern New Hampshire. Now, when the continents were all crammed together about 200 million years ago, and this was Pangea, the Appalachian Mountains are there. And even before Pangea, at about 400 million years ago, it's still there. Now let's go as far back as we can, 750 million years ago, before multi-celled organisms even appear. Boom! My town is there. The rest of the planet, by the way, is water. There are various points in time where this is kind of underwater, but let's just say for funskies that the Appalachians, which is this area, kind of, are so creepy because there legitimately are things in this land that just never left. It's just a fun theory. People in the Appalachians love to have them, but what if they've seen things?
These UFOs and stuff always seem to appear at times of social stress. The Second World War, the atomic bomb, times, in other words, of cultural instability. This probably is not a coincidence. Every time something shifts in humanity, paranormal or supernatural things tend to increase. You may say this is delusion or hysteria, but it's probably just perception shifting. When things start to break down, people stop trusting these man-made systems and these man-made authorities, and they correctly start noticing these anomalies. Stress loosens the filter, and you begin to notice what you usually ignore. So these UFOs are not lights in the sky, they are patterns in awareness. So when everything begins to collapse and we start to see what the world is really like, because of course all of these systems are fake and man-made, we essentially return to nature and we start to notice what is really there. Not because human beings are stupid, but because certainty basically no longer exists.
Ancient Egyptians were more advanced than us. You think that's crazy? Let me prove it. Number 1. They put antibiotics in their beer. We discovered antibiotics in 1928. They were drinking it 3,000 years before us, getting drunk and healing at the same time. Number 2. This wooden artifact was found in a tomb. Engineers tested it. It flies. 2,000 years before the Wright brothers. Number 3. They mapped a star called Sirius B. You cannot see it with your eyes. We needed telescopes to find it. They had no telescopes. How did they know it existed? Number 4. They calculated the size of the Earth 2,000 years before Columbus was born. They were only 2% wrong. Columbus thought the Earth was smaller. Egyptians knew better. Number 5. The Great Pyramid. Japan's best engineers tried to build a small replica. They failed. We still cannot build what they built with their hands.
Hold on. Sit down. Look at this. This is weird, right?
Egyptian art is beautiful, but why does it look like this? You know what that is? That's your cerebellum. It processes visual information. I know, you're thinking, Mr. Static, that's a very, very good coincidence. It's very observant that you saw that. But look at this. This is the optic chiasm. The front of it is a diagram of how your eyes connect to it. Okay? 2 for 2. Still a coincidence. Let's look at the beetle. The scarab symbolizes protection of the brain. That's why the cranial sutures line up perfectly. The beetle's wings line up perfectly with the 2 hemispheres of the brain. The 2 hemispheres process this information and relay it to the cerebellum in the back. That's what those balls are. If you're doing an MRI scan, it looks pretty close to a beetle. The legs being those nerves that plug your consciousness into reality. You like that? I got 40 more of those. Hidden History is finally complete. You follow that link, you can get access to all of them right now.
The statue faces and the symmetry. How can you possibly do that by hand? This will wow you.
Yeah, so there's elements to precision, and one of those is symmetry. And there's been some interesting studies done on the faces of giant statues. One in particular is the face of Ramses. There's a statue at Luxor. Chris Dunn was real seminal in this. He went and took a photo, like bang on, like very front on, and then what he did was take a copy of that photo, you make it 50% transparent, make the original 50% transparent, you take one and you flip it like on that horizontal axis, then you overlay them, right? It's like overlaying the left side on the right side, and it's perfect. But what's interesting about the symmetry, it's perfectly symmetrical, left to right. Now, this isn't a feature in humans. No human is perfectly symmetrical, different nostrils, different eyeballs. It's also not something that is done in artwork. So, you know, people often say, well, Michelangelo, you know, he carved David. It's a beautiful statue. I've seen it. It's incredible. But it's human. It's not symmetrical. Symmetrical is, you can't achieve that degree of symmetry just by eyeballing it and doing it by hand. And it's also something that's not really human. I think some of these statues almost look a bit inhuman because of that symmetry when they're up there and they're staring at you, because it's mind-blowing to actually go and look at them. Are you familiar with the incredible stone vases that they make in Egypt?
Please talk about them.
There is a collection of these things. They're made from igneous stone. What's interesting to me about these is that they're some of the earliest types of artifacts that we find. And these vases display just astonishing aspects of precision and engineering. There's always these sort of arguments, well, can you do this by hand? Can you not? So recently, there's been some work done. I've been working with a couple of guys. They're qualified, professional metrologists. They work for Rolls-Royce in Indianapolis. They've got their hands on a pre-dynastic Egyptian vase. And for the first time, they've actually been able to scan this thing using a structured light scanner and define the specific elements of precision on it. And it's just astounding. It's within 0.003 of an inch of being basically perfectly flat. But that's
0.003 of an inch.
0.003 of an inch. How perpendicular is this cylinder on its axis relative to the top of the vase? Within 1,000th of an inch.
1,000.
So it's perfectly perpendicular. Then the second reading here shows you how perfectly, what's the circular error, like what's the circularity of it. It's within 13,000ths of an inch of being perfectly circular.
How are you going to do that by hand?
Well, you can't. So to give you an example, so 1,000th of an inch, if you take a sheet of printer paper like this, that's about 7.5 thousandths thick.
Holy
shit. Human hair, 2 to 3 thousandths of an inch.
So it's half the size of a human hair.
Of being perfect.
Of being perfect.
Yes. So
Holy.
to bed, like these things had to have been made on a machine.